Okay, hi everyone, we're live. Episode 63 of the Technology for Good show. I'm Tom Aftree and I've got my co-host with me, Chris Kernahan. Chris, say hi.
Hi, how you doing? Chris Kernahan, Principal Consultant with Bluefin Solutions, Cloud Architect, and general love of technology. And yeah, thanks for having me back, Tom. Very much appreciated.
No problem. And I'm Tom Raftery. I'm the lead in energy and sustainability and clean tech for industry analyst firm Redmonk. And we have this show every week at this time. And we talk about all kinds of cool things, basically, how we're going to save the world with technology. So we start the show typically a little bit downbeat with some bad news to kind of set some context. And then we talk about some better news stories on, things that are actually doing good technology, how technology is helping make people's lives better day in, day out. I'm wearing my EclipseCon t-shirt. I was at EclipseCon France this week in Toulouse. And I'd never been to Toulouse before, Chris, and I was amazed. I don't know why. I had expected Toulouse to be a more industrial city than it is. And actually, yes. it's a beautiful, the center of Toulouse is a beautiful old medieval city. It's very, very nice. I was well impressed. Yeah, it was gorgeous.
I think you sampled the wine. What region is Toulouse in?
It's in the south. It's in the south. I didn't actually sample a lot of wine. I know it's sacrilege. It's sacrilege. I'm a bit of a Philistine that way.
Did you?
I had a lot of beer.
Oh, awful French beer or actual good beer?
No, I had good beer. They had some nice beers there. Afflihem and a couple of those were there, so that was good. That was good.
Very nice. Very nice.
I was there for the EclipseCon conference, and
you were keynoting.
They asked me to be the keynote speaker. They have one keynote speaker per event, and I was the keynote speaker for this one. And I was speaking about the convergence of the Internet of Things and energy. So I have a few slides from that talk lined up for later on the show. So we'll go through them. And
I have to ask, and we have both presented at conferences, and it hasn't happened to me yet. And but I've never done a keynote. I'm always curious as to whether it's more stressful doing a keynote than just a straight presentation. You've presented at some very large conferences like myself, but you did SAP Tech Ed last year in one of the theaters in Berlin, and then you're presenting at EclipseCon. And I have to say, I'm curious to know just what the difference is. And
it's obviously a lot more pressure to do a keynote because, and I'm doing the one at the SAP for Utilities event in September as well in Huntington Beach. I'm doing the opening keynote there.
That's right. Yes.
And there's a lot more pressure because it's a lot more visible for all the delegates. There's nothing competing with it on the schedule. It is the only thing happening at that time.
Yeah.
And it is also for the EclipseCon one, and I presume for the SAP Utilities one, it was what they were using to promote the event as well. It was, they were talking about how I was going to be the speaker at it and stuff. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on to deliver. So I was lucky. I didn't know how the talk was going to go. I took a new approach in this particular talk I gave. I went for radical optimism, basically.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. It works for this show,
and it worked. It went really well. The feedback I got was tremendously positive. So I was blown away actually by the amount of positive feedback I received from the delegates and the organizers as well. So it's almost more important that I get it from the organizers because you don't want them disappointed having chosen you as a speaker. So no, they were delighted, and Mike Milinkovic, who's the exec director of the Eclipse Foundation, lovely guy, he tweeted that he was delighted with the talk. So when you get that happening,
I saw the tweet actually because I'd forgotten that you were at EclipseCon. I saw the tweet. I was like, that's where he is this week. So, yes.
That was a big relief. That was a big relief. When the organizers are happy, then you're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, we'll crack on with the stories because we're just boring people with me patting myself on the back. And
it's well deserved, though, Tom. And we'll show it in a second why it's well deserved.
We will. We'll show a couple of the slides. There's 78 slides in the deck, so we'll go through 4 or 5 of them. We're not going through all 78. So
was the talk actually recorded and streamed?
It was streamed and recorded. So the stream is still there. So you can go to the stream, but the stream for that day is a 9-hour stream, and it's in the middle of that 9 hours. You can actually pull forward and find it there, but the audio quality from the stream isn't great. So they recorded it as well, and the recording will be put up, and as soon as that's up, I'll tweet that out as well.
If you can stick it in the notes with your slide, that would be with your slide deck. That would be brilliant, because it's something that, as I said, I forgot about it. I would love to see it actually.
Yeah. I'll do that. I'll put it in the slide deck as well. Okay, so we'll crack on with the stories. And as usual, it's the kind of bad news first and the good news after. Same as I did with the talk. And it works here, so I figured it would work there, and it seemed to do so. So the bad news is this one, and it's, you know, the usual. It's climate change, and this time it's researchers talking about the health implications of climate change, and how they are. And, you know, you've got this kind of photograph of a polluted street, and that's what the article itself is about. The article is a bit meandering. It goes a bit all over the place. But basically, the bottom line of the article is that there are serious health implications from air pollution, principally related to climate change. And, you know, it's not surprising. People who are worst hit are the elderly and the very young, people whose lungs in particular are developing, so kids. And it's you know, it's we all know this already. Climate change is messing with us, messing it up. So we'll move on to the better news, because the Dutch courts decided that there was an environmental group took a court case against the Dutch government, saying that the Dutch government weren't doing enough to protect their people from climate change. And so, as a result, the courts agreed with the environmentalists and are now requiring the Dutch government to reduce emissions by 25% by 2020, above, or 25% off the 1990 baseline by 2020. And obviously there'll be more. But what's fascinating about this is there's nothing to stop groups in other countries doing the same thing. And obviously, places that have been a bit slow, like Canada and Australia, come to mind straight away. And similarly here in Spain. I mean, we're not doing too bad here in Spain, but with the government doing things like rolling out legislation to put a tax on solar power, you know, so that if people generate solar power, I mean, that's extremely anti-climate change, if you want. It's you know, it's and I think a good argument could be made that that's illegal, if not, you know, against the best interests of citizens.
Let's remember, you know, that the Dutch do have a very, very particular outlook on this, given as the fact that they are a low-lying country with a substantial amount of reclaimed land. You know, climate change is, you know, has the capacity to be extremely detrimental. You know, we saw the effects of that with Hurricane Katrina, with, you know, dam systems and levees and things, and when they fail, what can actually happen. And we're seeing that with the Maldives as well, as an extremely low-lying country.
Losing 30% of their farmland.
Exactly. So, you know, I'm not surprised that the Netherlands was one of the places that took this approach. And I'm certainly not surprised that they actually won, as quite a progressive country anyway.
Correct.
But it's a landmark, and it's something that other countries can now, or other groups can now take and start to use, and the legal arguments are now there and in precedent.
And I could see a lot of the native people in Alaska, for example, whose villages are falling into the water because permafrost is destroying the foundation. The permafrost is melting, so their houses are coming apart. By the way, I should say, Susan Keohane made a very good point there, that we should take a second out to acknowledge the fact that the Supreme Court in the US today passed a legislation saying that gay marriage equality is the law of the land for all 50 states.
Awesome!
It's amazing. It's great. So all those states that were holding out, it's now federal law.
So there is a similar challenge going through the Northern Ireland High Court because it's legal. Gay marriage is legal throughout the entire of the UK except Northern Ireland, and there is a similar challenge going on in the High Court at the moment. Good. And hopefully it will also be successful.
Fantastic.
There were 20,000 people turned up in Belfast at a rally in favour of gay marriage.
Fantastic.
20,000 people. Whenever you consider that there's only something like 300,000 to 400,000 in Belfast, that's like that's a substantial number of people of the population.
Tremendous. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So thank you for the reminder, Sue. That's brilliant.
Exactly.
Early over the moon.
Exactly. I was delighted. I was delighted when I saw that. It suddenly blew up in my stream just around lunchtime there today, and everyone was jumping up and down about it. So it's great news. It's great news.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll keep going.
Yep.
The next one I saw that I thought was interesting was the Canadian story, and I thought that was fascinating because it's out of Alberta, and of course Alberta has been a blot on the Canadian environmental record. And the Canadian environmental record was good up until kind of the Harper government came in.
Yeah,
it was okay until the Harper government came in. And they've really messed up the Canadian the reputation of Canada internationally. But now the ultra conservative government in Alberta was thrown out, and it elected for the first time a left-wing government in Alberta.
Fabulous.
And the left-wing government have said that they are going to come down hard on climate change. They're going to reverse a lot of the stuff that's been going on there. They're going to the carbon tax that they had that was about to expire, they're actually going to double it. So they're going to keep it on and double it. So it'll go from $15 to $30, which is still too little, but it makes a difference. I mean, a carbon tax should be about $50 a ton rather than 30, but it's a start. And it's going the right direction rather than the wrong direction, which is where Alberta was going. So I mean, that's going to, and they've also said that this is the start of what they're going to do. So this government is going to do in Alberta. So kudos. Finally, we're going to get and the environmental minister there is a woman called Shannon Phillips.
Yes.
So she is she's quite outspoken and has taken this very bold step, and as I said, has said that this is going to be the first of many steps that they're going to take going forward to redeem Alberta's environmental record. So, as I say, kudos and great to see, and more, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's one of those interesting ones. Canada is an extremely resource-rich country, but a number of the things that we talk about, solar and hydro and wind power, can be used very effectively in Canada, especially wind and hydro. So being so far north in the summer months, solar is brilliant, but
winter less so.
It has its issues in the winter, which are quite long as well. But
but they have huge plains there. I mean, PLA-INS, which would be fantastic for wind.
Exactly.
So little wind turbines all over the place, and they'll be set.
Well, you could do it the same way that Sweden does it. Or was it Sweden or Norway? The northern part of the country is seeded with renewables that transport to the south.
Correct.
You could do it the same way. So you could.
Yeah. We'll keep going because the next story is a lovely one. It's about Google taking over a coal power plant in the US. In Alabama, in Jackson County. And they're going to turn it into a data center, which will be powered 100% by renewable energy. So, it's taking an old site and repurposing it, an old site that produced a massive amount of CO2, and they're repurposing it to use it now and power it with 100% renewable energy. So it's it's just a fantastic story. I mean, wow. I mean, it's a good place, obviously, to put a data center because it's got a resilient power connection.
Exactly.
What you want in a data center, and they'll be able to get power into no problem, and it's also well data connected. So it's and you know, you've got the facilities there for water cooling, obviously, as well. Yep. So it's a nice little story. One thing I would say about the story, though, is there's an error in it where they say Google claims to be the largest user of renewable energy in the US, and that's incorrect. Google is not the largest user of renewable energy in the US. They are number 4. Let's see if I can find that report. It's on the EPA's website.
The interesting thing is, this isn't the first time that Google has done something like this, because they did it in Finland. I think it was
that's right,
or something in Finland, and then we also have other companies repurposing things, and I know what it was. It was the Google barges as well. Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. No, it's yeah, I can't find it on the Intel site now, or sorry, on the EPA site, but the Intel was the largest part of renewable energy, followed by Microsoft, followed by somebody else, followed by Google. Google bought 860. I think it was 860 gigawatt hours of renewable energy in 2014, whereas
not direct or credits, because Google's
no, that's direct purchase, yeah.
Direct purchase. Yeah.
So Google bought about 860 gigawatts, whereas Intel bought 3,100, and Mike came in at about 2,500.
Yeah, to be fair, those chip fabs need a ridiculous amount of energy.
But Microsoft?
No, the Intel.
No, I get that. That's the 3,100. But yeah. What about the 2,500 that Microsoft bought?
That's a lot of Xbox hours.
Yeah.
I can't quite account for it. Yeah. That's a lot of Xbox hours. That's a lot of Call of Duty.
The big difference there is that Google get about 40% of their energy directly from renewables, whereas Microsoft get over 80.
Yeah.
So that's I think where the difference lies. But other than that, it's a great story. I mean, like I say, they're repurposing something that was a blot on the landscape and turning it into something that is, you know, as a data center, it
would be left
helping Google sell advertising, but it's also renewably powered.
Well, like at the end of the day, what would happen to something like that? It would be left to wreck and ruin.
Yeah, yeah.
So as a brownfield site, it wouldn't just be a blot in the landscape. It would be, you know, an ecological disaster in many respects. It would just be left to wreck and ruin. At least somebody's picked it up and is doing something with it.
And somebody
probably got great tax credits for it, but you know, I don't care.
Exactly.
It's an incentive that works. Why not?
Yeah. And the paper mill story in Finland was fantastic as well. And again, there was a great water infrastructure on that site. You know, paper mill, of course, is going to have great water infrastructure. So they used that for bringing in the water for cooling the data center in Finland. So we'll keep going. The next one I thought was interesting as well was if not a little expensive, was this one. And oops, just turned it off. Sorry about that. Boom. Share it again. Okay, so it's this thing called FLIR, and FLIR is it's a little attachment you can stick onto your phone, iOS or Android. I think it's iOS for now and Android in a couple of weeks. So it's imminent on Android and here right now on iOS. And it's a camera, but it's a temperature sensitive camera. So it generates images like the one you see in the picture there. So it it's like a thermal imager, basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
And why would that be useful? For most people, it wouldn't be that useful, except if you, in wintertime, wanted to see where all your heat is going and know which parts of your house need to be insulated.
Yes.
Then it's tremendously useful. But for most other things, I don't see a huge variety of uses for it, to be honest. You can see this guy here is taking a picture of the house, and you can see that wall, absolutely, that front wall really, really needs to be insulated. The red shows the amount of heat coming out through that wall there.
Yeah, I suspect. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's bad, isn't it? Yeah. That's not unusual. I think in the US, American houses are typically not well insulated.
Well, they have a lot of wood in them.
Yeah, exactly.
Not, like a house here. I don't think actually the only walls that I have that aren't brick are, I think I only have about 3 or 4 interior walls that aren't brick.
Yeah, same here.
Cavity.
Yeah, the same here. They use cavity bricks here all the time, so it's
the
same idea. And you can see there's that's a fridge, obviously, and a couple of other things. So yeah, you can see and you got a temperature range on it as well. So it's a nice idea, but it's not cheap, as I say. It's something like 200 or 250 or thereabouts. So what I would see it being useful for is insulation installers.
Yeah.
So rather than you and I buying it for our phone and going around our own house once and then tossing it because we wouldn't use it anymore, for people who do insulation, yeah, it would be a really good idea. Be very useful for them.
Absolutely, a quick survey of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. So that's absolutely. But again, it's one of these sensor devices that is really, putting what used to be high-end equipment potentially in the hands of consumers.
Yeah. Through the sensor prices crashing.
Exactly.
You got your dog there with you.
I do, yes.
Freddie's in the other room today.
So, I did find him digging up the garden. So
yeah.
Well, thankfully, it's the garden behind the shed, but there's a big tree there. So there is. So she disappeared. It took me about 5 minutes to find her, and when your Newfoundland disappears, you tend to notice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny. I walked behind the shed and went, "What are you doing?" She like that. I promise you nothing.
Busted.
Wasn't me. Yes. How's Freddie getting on, by the way?
Freddie's in great form. Hang on, I'll turn that off again. He's in great form. He's in the other room at the moment. He had to go away this week to a kennel because I was in France and my wife was in Austria. But yeah, he's flying. He's fantastic. He's doing really well. He's a lovely dog. Very, very good natured. Very gentle. Eating a bone or anything like that, you can literally reach down, take it out of his mouth, and not a bother. And if you go and hand it to him again, he puts out the head extremely gently and takes it out of your hand without making sure he doesn't hurt you. Beautiful dog, beautiful.
It was fascinating. Had the shower replaced yesterday, and the plumber who did the shower. So Anna was here, Lauren was here, and the dogs were here. I was away, and Eliza was very, very content with the plumber, but basically followed him around the house. So she did, and whenever Anna was running around showing off to the plumber, Eliza would normally just be lying there with her eyes closed, eyes open. She was still lying there, but eyes were definitely open, keeping an eye on everything that was going on.
Good.
It was fascinating. So it was. Lauren said it was very interesting to watch.
That's great to see.
That's great. Absolutely. Sorry, let's crack on.
Yeah. So the next one I saw was researchers in Stanford finding a cheaper way to make hydrogen, and it looks very straightforward and looks easy enough to do apparently. And why this is important is because obviously hydrogen could be if we're making it from water and making it easy from water, it could be a nice way to store energy.
Yes. And
obviously, energy storage is something that we're all concerned about, and I mean, we talked before we started the show about the way that fossil fuels became popular because they were a fantastic way to transport energy around the place, hydrogen could be the same, and it's a much cleaner form of energy, obviously.
Oh God, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
So, there's been talk for a long time of the emergence of a hydrogen economy, and it's never really materialized because of the difficulty generating hydrogen. But this might change all that. So
absolutely,
that'd be cool. And cracking on from that, the next stories that I saw that I thought was cool was Bill Gates basically telling everyone to invest in renewables. It's something he's been slow enough to be vocal about. So I mean, he's one of the richest guys in the world. The article says he's the richest. I'm not sure if he's actually the richest, but
he is still the Mexican mobile magnet is still number 2. They swapped for a couple of years, and then Bill Gates has come back as number 1.
Yeah, but they're not counting Putin.
Yeah, but in order to count Putin, you have to know what money he has, and he has that very well hidden by all accounts.
He's got hundreds of billions stashed all over the place. Don't worry.
Oh Jesus! Yeah.
Gates is a pauper beside him.
You know what? I'm not even going to have this conversation because he's such a scary guy. You know, really. You know, he's not a guy I want to piss off in any way, shape, or form. Even somebody like, you know, for people as lowly as us. You know.
Yeah, you don't want a polonium sandwich, no?
No, I'd really rather not. So, I'd really rather not. Oh, man.
Right, but Bill Gates basically he's invested about 500 or 600 million in renewables-ish in unusual kind of different projects, not kind of directly, but 650 million pounds it says there, and he's going to put another 500 or so in the next 5 years. So it's great to see, and he's calling on other people to do similarly. He's talking about the need for, you know, the likes of a Manhattan project or the Apollo project, that the government should put in a serious amount of R&D. That's not going to happen anytime soon, I reckon. So it's going to have to be private people like him who are doing it, you know, and he's not doing it out of any kind of altruism.
No.
He's doing it to make a profit, you know, and fair enough if the government aren't going to step in and do it, and he does it to make a profit. Why not?
It's really interesting when you look back at the history of innovation and how things worked. You know, when we were in the Middle Ages and we were on voyages of discovery, patrons were typically monarchies.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we got to the age of industrialization, and people who were patrons actually started to be industrialists. Spending an awful lot of money. So, you know, Edison is credited with a number of inventions and things like that there, which actually just came from his labs. You know, he lent his name to them the same way that Richard Branson lends the Virgin brand to various entrepreneurs and things like that. And then in sort of the early to mid 20th century, we went back to government led.
Most of that was after the war.
Pardon?
Most of that was after the Second World War.
Exactly. So granted, the space race and stuff like that, there was really an endeavour that could only be done by governments given the cost. But now we're coming back to a period where we're seeing industrialists actually spending their money on these types of endeavours. You know, we've got Google X, we have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with Warren Buffett and those types of people. Elon Musk doing incredible things. So I think it's, you know, it's just a cyclical thing, and it's great to see.
Yeah,
so it is, because you know, governments have their own self-need, you know, governments are subject to lobbyists and things like that there, and not always putting their own the interests of the people. And yes, industrialists don't necessarily have to be altruistic, but they I think they can do a lot more, have a lot more freedom. But if consequently the flip side of that is, if they're not acting in everybody's best interest, they're taken to task pretty quickly.
Correct. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It has been fascinating to watch. I think it'll be a long time again, though, before we start to see the governments kicking in money into any of these things in any meaningful way, at least. It's unfortunate, but those are the times we're in, I think. But you know, never say never. stranger things have happened. But
yes, we're applauding Bill Gates for something.
Sue in the comments there has mentioned a story about desalination powered by the sun, and that's a nice segue into this story, where we've seen solar installations are up 36% compared to last year, and community solar farms are due to grow 500%. This is the main headline of the story. So we're starting to see a big boom in solar globally, and that's a nice lead into the EclipseCon bit that I mentioned at the start, because as you had said, I did the keynote for EclipseCon, and one of the things that I mentioned in that, I'll actually go back to the very first slide I was going to go through. So as you can see, this is the slide share site where I uploaded my talk, my EclipseCon talk 2, and the link is in the notes for all of today's stories as usual. And basically, this deck is 78 slides long, but the kind of slides I do are typically one image per slide, and I flip through them quite quickly. So this particular chart, for anyone who's unaware of it, this is called the Swanson effect. And basically, the Swanson effect is a bit like Moore's law, but for solar. And what it says, and it's a law that has been around for 30 years now, and it hasn't gone down, or it is held solid. Basically, the law says that for every doubling of solar capacity installed, the price of solar panels comes down 20%. So. And that has held true, like I say, for the last 30 years. The price has fallen, and it has continued to fall. And why that's important is because, well, that's important because if you look at this chart, this is a chart of, in orange on the left-hand side, the price of solar, and in blue on the right-hand side, the amount of installed capacity globally. So as the price comes down, boom, the amount of installed capacity goes up. I mean, it's there's no big surprise there, but if you remember, the Swanson effect means that as the price the Swanson effect means as the amount of capacity installed goes up, consequently the price comes down.
Absolutely, yes. It's classic supply and demand.
Yeah, and economies of scale as well are a big part of it. But there's huge technology leaps happening in solar production as well, and then. I saw these two stories that came out this year. This one is from May, so just last month. China has decided to install 70 gigawatts of solar power between now and 2017. And for people who are unfamiliar, a gigawatt would be a typical nuclear power plant, 1 gigawatt. And China are going to target 70 gigawatts in the next 2 years. So if you can imagine building a nuclear power plant, that's a project that takes 4, 5, 6, 7 years, because you have all kinds of regulatory issues to be handled and big engineering, and it's a nightmare. It doesn't scale.
No.
Whereas it's very straightforward to install 70 gigawatts of solar. It just takes a lot of solar power panels, but the regulatory issues and stuff are so much more straightforward that you can throw out 70 gigawatts of solar in 2 years. And of course, this will lead, because you're installing 70 gigawatts of solar and because you've got the Swanson effect that we talked about, that means more solar capacity rolled out. It means globally the price of solar falling even further. And then on top of that, you see this story from just last week. India have upped its solar target 5-fold from 20 gigawatts to now 100 gigawatts. So while China was talking about 70, India are going for 100 gigawatts of solar by 2022. So in 7 years, they're going to roll out 100 gigawatts of solar. So between those two countries, that's 170 gigawatts of solar. And if we just take a step back again for a second and look at the amount of installed capacity globally, we're looking at 64 gigawatts in 2015.
That's three times the capacity nearly.
Yeah. So this, and again, Swanson effect means the price is going to come down even more. And the price itself, if we look at it, there was a new record set recently in Dubai. Dubai have this, I'm going to destroy the name. It's Mohammed bin Rashid, who is, I think, is the name of the guy who is the leader of Dubai. And there's this solar park being built there in his name, the Mohammed bin Rashid Solar Park, I think it's called, in Dubai. And it's it's rated for 1,000 megawatts. And 1,000 megawatts, so that's 1 gigawatt. But they're building it out piecemeal. So they put out a tender to get 100 megawatts of that 1,000 built, and 10 finalists were chosen out of about 100 who started off initially. About 10 finalists were chosen, and of those 10, the tender was awarded to a group called Aqua, A-C-W-A, Aqua Energy out of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And their bid went in 5.98 cents per kilowatt hour, which is unheard of. The previous low price record for solar was about 8 or 9 cents per kilowatt hour. This came in at 5.98. And the way they do it is, the way it was structured was, Aqua will build out the park.
Yeah.
They will run the park, and they will sell the energy to the Dubai utility company at 5.98 cent guaranteed price for 25 years.
So let's contextualize that. You told me before the show so Dubai is 99% gas powered. What is the price per kilowatt hour of gas currently?
That's the real amazing part about this story.
Exactly.
As you say, Dubai currently generates 99% of their energy by burning gas. Yeah. And that costs them 9 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
So they're paying 9 cents per kilowatt hour for gas, and now they're going to be paying 5.98 cents for the solar. So far, far cheaper. And even better, the winning consortium, Aqua, said, you know, if you give us the full 1,000 megawatts, not just 100, if you give us the full 1,000 megawatts, we'll do it for 5.4 cents.
Yeah.
Dubai sat back and thought about this for a sec and then said, nah, I tell you what, do 200 at the 5.98, because if you do it, if we go for the 1,000 from you, we're committing ourselves to giving you 5.4 cents per kilowatt hour for 1,000 megawatts for the next 25 years. And you know what, if this is coming down 20% for every doubling of output, we'd be crazy to tie ourselves into 5.98, which, while it's a record price now, won't be a record price next year.
You know, it's really good it wasn't a British government IT project, because I would have taken the full 1,000 at 5.4. I can almost guarantee it. The British government IT procurement were not involved in that, thank Christ.
But so these were slides I was talking about, or I was using in my talk in EclipseCon, and then I went on to throw this slide up, and I said, "Here's a thought experiment for you. If solar is going from the 8 or 9 cents per kilowatt hour as it was up until that Dubai bid to 5.98, and then 5.4, and then 4.4, and then 3.4, and then 2.4, when's it stop? Why would it stop?" So we're getting into a situation where for the last 30 years the price of solar has been going down and down and down.
Exactly, yes.
There's no end to that in sight. We've just seen India's rolling out 100 gigawatts and China 70 gigawatts. So they're tripling the current output capacity in the next 7 years. So the price is going to continue to fall. And as the price approaches zero, we're going to be in a situation where energy is in abundance. So that was this slide that I put up, and I said, here's a thought experiment. What do you do when you're in a situation where energy is in abundance?
It reminds me of the joke of the mathematician and the mathematician and the engineer and the beautiful woman, but I can't tell you that joke on air. The punchline is close enough for practical purposes.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
the last thing I said on this bit in the talk in the keynote was, I said, who's going to be the one who creates the Uber for energy?
I know who it wants to be.
And I know
who wants to be it.
Yeah. I was in a room full of developers. So I was chatting them saying, guys, it's wide open. Anyone can do it. Go away, start making energy companies and make this stuff real. We are going to be in a situation where photovoltaic is so cheap, it'll be in everybody's windows, it'll be in everyone's roof tiles, and we will have an abundance of energy. Yeah. We could, for example, desalination, the story that Sue pointed to earlier. Desalination then becomes very straightforward. You'd have to say, if energy is going to be that cheap to roll out, desalination plants are massive energy hogs. But
massive, huge.
If we can do it with cheap stuff, then it suddenly becomes far more realistic.
Yeah, no, it does. It really, really does. And then you actually start to change the destiny of countries that are currently in drought
and currently energy poverty.
Yeah, exactly.
So lots of the developing world are in massive energy poverty, but suddenly there'll be an energy abundance. They'll go, I won't say overnight, but they'll go from being in a situation where, they have no access to energy or very little to one where they have as much energy as they want.
Yep, exactly.
And that most of those countries most of those developing countries are places where there is an abundance of sunlight.
Yep, it is. They are.
This won't be an issue for them. So this is tremendously good news. It's awesome. I can't
You're
wait.
geeking out at it, aren't you? You're geeking out.
Totally excited about it. I am. Anyway, we'll move on. So we're heading to kind of looking at transportation stories now. And during the week, for the first time, the Google car started rolling out on actual roads. So you can see it there driving around Mountain View in California. This is it on a road there with other ordinary cars behind it on the same road, going at a sedate 25 miles an hour, because if they build a car that goes faster than 25 miles an hour, there's far more rules and regulations that they have to adhere to. So keeping it at a maximum of 25 miles an hour, they have a 10-page document they have to adhere to. When they go above 25 miles an hour, suddenly it goes into thousands of pages of documents and regulations. So that's why the 25 mile an hour limit was decided. And then we see this story about BMW and Ford doing ride sharing services, rethinking the future of car ownership. Basically, what they're doing is they're rolling out places. It's happened in London already with Ford Go Drive project in London, where you can sign up and just get a Ford car paid by the hour, I think it is. No, in London it's by the minute. The BMW one and the Ford one in the US are by the hour. And you literally you pick them up somewhere, drive them wherever you want to go to, and drop them off, and you have guaranteed parking. And you're in London, your congestion charge is covered, and your insurance is covered, your tax is covered, your fuel costs are covered. Half the fleet in London are electric vehicles, so they're Ford Focus electric vehicles. So the only thing about the one in London that annoys me is that you have to be a UK resident, so I can't sign up for it and use it anytime I go to London. Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's part of the process is to contact the DVLA, the vehicle driver's license.
Yeah, the licensing authority. Yes.
Yeah. So, I have an EU driving license, obviously, but I don't have an English one. So that might change in time. But yeah, for me, I'm an occasional visitor to London. I'd love to be able to just, have an app on the phone, which is what they have. It's called Go Drive. You download the app onto the phone, book a car, and pick up the car and drive off, and not have to worry about it. Particularly if it's an electric car.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's fascinating is that both of these companies, Ford and BMW, they're traditional companies, obviously, they're seeing the writing very much on the wall, and they're saying, look, we have to change from being a manufacturer of cars to a seller of miles, seller of mobility.
Yeah.
I mean, Ford have even gone further, and they're bringing out an electric bicycle as well.
That's just lazy now.
That's true.
That's just lazy. That is. But it makes sense, especially when you start to get into autonomous vehicles and things like that. The idea of car ownership actually will probably go away in many respects. Does it make sense to actually to buy a car that you don't drive, or does it make sense to reserve a car that can turn up on your door when you need it and then take you to where you want to go?
True, and if I remember correctly, the details of the BMW one are slightly different. What they do is they've contacted BMW owners, or maybe this is the Ford one. Maybe I'm getting the stories confused. Anyway, whatever it is, I think it's BMW. So they contact the BMW owners and say, do you want to share your car with other people who want to use a BMW? So we'll pay you for allowing other people to use your car. And you can register to do it, and then other people get to drive a BMW, and obviously drivers are vetted, and
of course,
but it's a way, if you have a BMW, it's a way of helping you pay your loan if you financed it, and of course a lot of the financing goes through the BMW dealership anyway. So as far as I know, that part of the program, the allowing you to share your car, as far as I know, that's only for people who have financed it through their dealership.
Right. Okay. Because that was one of the interesting things. Was I think it was General Motors made a loss on every model of their car up to the point that they were bailed out, and the only where they were actually making money was on their financial products.
Yeah.
And that it was Gladwell. I was reading Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker about the bailout of the car companies in the 2008 or in the financial crisis. Fascinating read, just what the car companies were doing with financial models. That's how Volkswagen and Porsche ended up. I think Volkswagen now own half of Porsche, or own Porsche or something, because Porsche shorted Volkswagen stock and it didn't work, and then Porsche's stock went down and Volkswagen bought them. I'm not going to say there was somebody was messing around somewhere, but Jesus, it was certainly a rough night.
That was embarrassing.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so.
Okay, we'll keep going. So we've talked a couple of times on the show about Microsoft, and I even mentioned them earlier in their green purchasing, which is fantastic. They've also now come up with a new mission statement, and this was Satya Nadella again. And I gotta say, it's an ambitious and concise and very clear mission statement.
Really?
Our mission, I know, yeah. Our mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. That's the new mission statement.
That is, that reminds me of that. It reminds me of and I suppose it sounds strange and perhaps a little bit far-reaching, but it reminds me of the Articles of Human Rights from the United Nations.
Oh, very good.
It's a very simple, very powerful statement.
Yeah, it is. It is clear and concise. Yeah. And that's the only reason I brought it up, because and I put it on the show, because I came across it and I thought, that's actually one you could actually get behind.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. Sue Kyohane is saying in the Twitter feed, by the way, interesting idea about sharing the BMW. My neighbor has a Tesla. Maybe he'll share that with me. We'll cross our fingers, Sue, and see how you get on.
Absolutely, Sue. You have to. There's a YouTube video of a guy taking Tesla passengers from 0 to 60 and the reactions are just hilarious.
They are. I've seen.
Absolutely hilarious.
It's very funny. It's very funny. But yeah, no, I mean, for people who buy the BMW first aid, this is a nice way for them to offset the cost, because it's coming off the cost of the loan. So it's really nice, a really nice idea. Apple apparently have updated their iTunes U, which is their iTunes University thing, and it now does a lot more. It allows teachers to set assignments. It allows students to submit the assignments. They're time stamped, all that kind of thing. It's all well and good. I've never used their iTunes U, so I don't know how good it actually is. It's well and good if the entire class all have Apple devices. But I suspect that's not the majority of classes, to be honest. I suspect that might happen in a few private schools. But I suspect the vast majority of schools would be at the very most mixed devices. And in that case, Google's alternative Google Education product is probably a better option, because that's web delivered.
Well, Microsoft's have an education platform as well. So I'm nearly certain it's actually quite compelling. Although it seems more at it's not sort of university age. It seems to be more aimed at as that gateway drug to Microsoft products at a very young age.
Yeah. That's not surprising. I mean, that's part of what Google's is as well. Google's is for second level as well as third level. The Apple one, I know it's iTunes U, but I think it's second and third level as well. Not third level specifically. I suspect it's not cross-platform. I know there are some Apple products which do work cross-platform, like Safari, for example, and iTunes. But I don't know if the iTunes U is. I suspect it's Apple only. But I could be wrong. We'll see. Speaking of developing and cross-platform and stuff like that, Facebook. That was a pretty weak link, but anyway, Facebook have sourced Nuclide, their developer product. It's a project designed. I'm going to read it out now because I don't know enough about it. It's a project designed to provide a unified developer experience for engineers throughout the company, whether they work on iOS, React Native, or hacked run on their own servers. So basically, it's an IDE. Essentially, and they've open sourced it. They're doing phenomenal stuff with open source Facebook, both in terms of hardware and software. It's lovely to see, and there's no huge advantage to them for a lot of it. The Open Compute, for example, where they're open sourcing all their hardware, there is a bit of an advantage to them, I guess, not just PR stuff, but I mean it because they've got a good community around it now, around the Open Compute kind of thing. It's helping them. Everyone's jumping in together and helping each other. So the end result is they're accelerating development, I suppose. I guess with this, it's similar, or maybe it's that they'll start to see who's doing really good stuff with Nuclide and go, how would you like to come work for Facebook?
Well, the thing about it is, and it's one of those deeply unsexy things. Okay, by standardizing everybody onto a common development platform, organizationally and internally, it makes life easier for supporting your users.
Right. Yeah.
It's deeply, deeply unsexy, but ultimately, like Nucleotide, from what I've seen of it, it takes the Atom editor and puts packages over the top of it to make it work across multiple development paradigms, or whatever way you want to, frameworks, or whatever way you want to describe it. But the way I read that is, this helps Facebook create a common user experience and will simplify their support processes. And fair play to them for doing it, and fair play to them for releasing it to the outside world.
Yeah. I suspect as well there's an element of recruitment in there too.
Oh yeah, of course. So,
but good stuff. And I'm going to skip a few stories now because we're coming up close to the hour that you have to drop off. And some of them are they're not that compelling. But this one was an interesting one. So this organization called OneWeb they've struck a $500 million deal to provide internet globally via satellites. They've got Airbus manufacturing the satellites.
Yeah.
They're going to manufacture about 900 satellites, of which 600 will be launched and the other 300 and odd will be kept for spares, is the idea. And they have a very exact number. It's 684, I think it is, if I remember correctly. No, 648. I transposed the two figures. 648 of those will be launched into orbit, and the other 250 or so will be kept for spares. So they're going to launch satellites to cover the entire internet, and they're not the only organization doing that, because Elon Musk's SpaceX company is also going to use 4,000 satellites to do the same kind of thing over the next few years. So basically, we're going to have internet everywhere from satellites. I'm reminded of what was the name of that company that back in the early 2000s decided to launch a load of satellites for
Iridium?
Yes, yeah, Iridium, exactly. They decided to launch a load of satellites for mobile phone access, global mobile phone access, no, actually, I'm getting confused. It was somebody who launched a load of satellites for.
It was satellite phones. Iridium did satellite phones. They were going for a constellation of about 60 odd, but then they went bust.
They went bust because the price of mobile telephony went through the floor.
The only company that's actually made a reasonable stab at it is Inmarsat. And that's because they didn't go after the consumer market. They went after the business and telemetry market, which is a lot
very different market.
Yeah, you can charge more for it.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the film Kingsman?
Yes, I have. Unfortunately,
this story about global internet access just reminds of Kingsman and the Bond film. All you need to do is get Elon Musk a cat and game sitting there. But no, like it's satellites. Is it true satellite access, or is it wireless via satellite, or what? Because as we go further,
you get latency.
Are base station based, not satellite based.
Yeah, you got to wonder, are there going to be latency issues there? And it's a huge investment. Yeah, it's
my brother-in-law. When he moved out to his house where it is now, it must be the guts of 10 years ago. He actually had to get satellite broadband. So he had a ISDN line coming into the house, providing the traffic going out, and then so his request went out the ISDN line, and then his data transmission or data reception came in via a satellite dish. But it meant that his round trip was completely asymmetric.
Yeah,
and it was a very, very strange setup. So it was, and in the end, actually, he got a bonded ISDN line put into the house until ASL came. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I guess for places where there's no internet access, it'll be useful. But I mean, we've also got Project Loon going on.
Exactly.
And so that's out of Google. And we've got Facebook's one as well, where they're going to launch these drones that stay up in the air for years at a time. So, well, I mean, I guess the bottom line is internet access will be ubiquitous.
Yes,
which is fantastic. And we were talking a couple of weeks ago about how there were 3 billion people on now, and in a few years' time there'll be 6 billion. So that's going to massively change everything. And that'll be within 5 years we'll have doubled the number of people on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And with our ubiquitous internet access and our ubiquitous power that we are going to have, our ubiquitous electricity.
Yeah.
What a world! What a world in which we will live.
I mean, it'll revolutionize the lives of a lot of people who are in the dark right now, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anywho, the other comms story that I saw that I thought was cute was this one about this company called Vivint, where they do internet access using antennae on people's roofs. So basically, if you happen to be lucky and you are a hub home, they'll put it on, they'll ask you for access to your roof. You say, sure, and you get free fast internet for the rest of your life. Because you know, they pipe it into your home, and then they beam it from your home to all the houses in the area. So you're acting as the hub, and everyone else gets to benefit from it, and you get it free. So I thought that was a nice one.
Yeah, no, that is, and it just goes to show how absolutely corrupt and badly run the communications infrastructure in the United States is.
Yeah, no, very true, very true, very true. Final, last two stories. Facebook's diversity report came out, and basically it's, you know, no change there. Basically 1% of a change or something like that. But the last story, to end on a good news story, the last story is this Google Genomics story. Yes. Google have teamed up with the Broad Institute, who are an institute coming out of MIT and Harvard.
Yes.
They're going to use their Google Cloud platform for more genomics studies. Basically, it's we've seen lots of stories already on how genomics is completely revolutionizing healthcare.
Yes.
And it's a huge data play because you have literally trillions of base pairs in the human body. Sequencing those, storing that information for lots of different people is a real big data play. And you need someone who has that kind of cloud infrastructure. So it's AWS, Google, Microsoft, you know, these are the ones who are in that game really.
Yeah, but what you have to remember is that there is very, very few companies on this planet that understand data anywhere near as well as Google.
Google, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Pardon?
Which is a good thing and a bad thing.
It is. It's a good thing because they understand. They do understand it. It's a bad thing what they sometimes use it for. But you know, Facebook understand data in a way that is phenomenal. But a lot of their stuff is structured because of the way that the platform actually can spits out the data. Google, by through its history, knows about unstructured data and how to actually derive insight from it.
Correct.
So and that to me makes it better than Facebook at actual data science.
Yeah, no, I mean, the great thing to take away from this is that, you know, this is another huge advance for genomics. And we see lots of companies getting involved in genomics now. SAP are getting involved in genomics. Microsoft are getting involved in genomics. Google now we see as well. You know, so all these big tech players, and it's really accelerating the rollout of personalized medicine.
Yeah,
because that's where we're going to get to. We're going to get to a situation where, you know, you go to the doctor says you've got XYZ, and let me take a quick swab, and we'll come back to you in 10 minutes. Why not? With your or they already have your DNA on file. They just look it up and say, okay, you've got this infection or disease. This is your DNA profile. With that DNA profile on this disease, this is the best medicine, or we manufacture a medicine specific to your DNA.
Well, the fascinating one, where the West went with antibiotics, the East and Russia went with bacteriophages, which were very, very inefficient for scale. But they don't have the same issues with antibiotic resistance because the bacteriophage itself follows the same evolutionary path. So over time, that was shown to be the approach with the largest efficacy. But as I said, it doesn't scale, and it is a very personal thing. As testing gets cheaper and easier, and you get the microfabrication and things like that there, then actually bacteriophages become a much more commercially attractive proposition, and overall less prone to
resistance.
But then you get into the whole who pays for it and how do people get their money back, which the pharmaceutical companies really, really like to do. Like any business, really.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I'm going to have to run. So
we should note before you go that there's something missing.
Yes. Tell me. I moved my nearline storage to a proper archive solution under the desk. But yes, nearline storage is gone.
Awesome. All right, that's it for this week. Thanks everyone for your time, your interest, and we'll be back next week, same time, same bat channel. Chris, you got to go and collect that child. Have a good one.
I do indeed. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Cheers.
Bye.